Hi, everyone. You're listening to Midlife Matters, a podcast for women parenting teens and young adults. Each week, I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to discuss all the topics that keep women in the middle years up at night. Today's episode is the first half of a great discussion we had on raising teenagers. Let's get started. Hey,
Okay.
Mindy and Julie, I'm so glad you guys are back for episode 3, and I am so excited to talk about the subject that puts the fear into every mother of younger kids, teenagers.
Yay!
And I don't know if you guys can remember just that feeling of, oh, I don't know if I want my kids to be teenagers.
Sort of.
Well,
It's been a long time for me, so.
Yeah,
I know. Well, it's like you're so happy to be out of one stage, but then you're jumping into another stage all at the same time.
right.
So, like anytime, your first kid hits that stage, you're unprepared.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thrown into complete tailspin from the get-go, and you're like, whoa, I haven't dealt with this before.
Unknown territory.
And one of the things that I was thinking about was when your kids are younger, all their behavior is so cut and dried. A lot of it is. Get your homework done, put your clothes away, stop teasing your brother. But once you hit
Yes.
the teens, the conflicts are so much more nebulous. Now you're mad because there's a wrong kind of attitude or the mood or the tone of voice. I don't know how many
Look.
arguments we've had over tone of voice. And
The eye rolling.
Yes, the eye rolling. And all those things wreak havoc on your family dynamic, but they aren't as easy to put your finger on because it's really hard to make someone adjust their attitude. It's not as hard to make them quit hitting their brother. So all of a sudden you're on very shaky ground and you feel like you've become a decent parent throughout the elementary years. You know, you're not having to run to the books every other day to figure out, is this kid on track or not? Then all of a sudden you really need a how-to manual. And you look around and there aren't as many people to give advice and there aren't as many books to read. Everyone's pretty quiet about their own kids' teenage behaviors. I don't know if I want to admit to what's going on in my house. So you get the feeling, maybe I'm the only one that's struggling with this. Of course, your kids no help because they're saying, oh, so-and-so's mom's perfect or so-and-so's mom lets them do that. And
Right.
so you are feeling inadequate in that area. So this episode is just one for encouragement. We want to be a voice of encouragement for the moms that are going through the teenage years. And I don't think that you can really be a true encouragement to somebody in the teenage years unless you've come through on the other side. One of the questions I asked you guys to think about was, what was the first indicator that you had a teenager living in the house? When was the first time you realized I'm entering uncharted waters?
There were a couple of events that it seemed like every time there was something new, like I said, our daughter was our first teenager. And there were certain events that like immediately popped to my mind when I read this question. One of those was the first time we were leaving church on a Wednesday night, and I think Abby Ray was 14 or 15. And she had just come out of youth group, and this boy walks over to the car, and I'm driving. And I stop because he comes to the window and I roll the window down and he asked if maybe Abby could, meet him at the movie theater and he'd be happy to pay for her ticket to see this
Oh.
Avengers movie. And like my stomach just dropped and I felt sick and I like my mouth hung open and everyone behind me, she's mortified because her brothers are back there. They're staring,
Right.
oh, Abby.
Yeah, you can hear it
And-
now.
And I'm like, I have to answer this kid and I can't get my jaw off the ground. Like, we're really here?
Right. And so Abby was 14 at the time.
I can't remember if it was 14 or 15. It
Okay.
was just, it was a moment.
And that
That
was a
will-
pretty bold move for the boy to
It-
approach
it-
you.
What a respectful boy. I sound so old if I was, what a respectful young man he was. But he really was. He did it the right way. Absolutely. It was the right way to do it. But it just was like, oh my goodness gracious.
We
Yeah.
have entered a new
Yes.
stage. Julie, what
Yes.
about you? What was the first moment that you realized I have a teenager?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was not with my oldest, not
Okay.
with my daughter. It was with my oldest son. And I wasn't going to say who it was, but one of my children was more inclined to want to look like everybody else and wear name brand clothes and have the cell phone. And I remember up until that point, I could just swing by Old Navy, grab shorts, shirts,
Mm,
pants, bring them all home. And the
Yes.
only factor was, do they fit?
right.
Right.
Nobody really cared about what they look like. And now we had to go into Abercrombie and Fitch,
Oh no.
and I just remember just kind of rebelling against that. I was like, no, we are not doing this, and that just became a point of contention between us, is the whole clothes thing. And,
Right.
Uh-huh.
Well, and
so
you
I,
probably weren't expecting it if Molly hadn't really been like that. You probably thought, well, I'm going to get away scot-free.
right, you don't think about your boy, and he still really likes clothes and stuff,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, everybody likes to see a fashionable guy.
That's right. Way to go.
I mean, I could think of one of my boys that could actually use a little more fashion sense, and I'm sure you could too, Mindy. So,
I know. I've got them both actually. Yes, Marie. So, what was the point at which you felt that you were like, oh no, we're here. Teenagehood has hit?
yeah, I was thinking about that. And I think for me, it wasn't so much of a funny scenario as a sad one. I just
Oh.
remember that it was the closed door. All of a sudden, every time I walked upstairs, her
Oh,
bedroom door was closed. And it's kind of right at the top of the stairs. And before
yes.
that, you could walk by and, say a hi or know what your kids were doing, hear them doing whatever. And then all of a sudden, you were always met with a closed door. I just remember feeling, I don't like this. It was kind of like literally the door was closed and figuratively. I kind of felt like the relationship is closed. And now I was going to have to be the one knocking. And you know
Yeah.
what it's like to go up and knock on your teenager's
Yeah.
closed door. You're going to get like, what? And then they're still not going to come to the door. Then you're going to say, oh, can I come in? What? Like they don't know what you want. And you kind of have to like negotiate for them to even come over the door. So it's intimidating. And I knew that I was going to have to be the one now asking questions, which you also know what it's like to ask a teenager a question. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. You're not really going to get a great response. And I was going to have to be the one initiating all the, not all the conversation, but a lot of it. Just the closed door to me said, okay, Mom, you're going to have to be doing a lot more work here if you want to know what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
sort of made me sad, and it kind of made me feel rejected, even though that's a totally normal thing. When the
Yeah.
first time you start seeing the closed door, you're
Yeah.
like, oh man, what did I do?
Right. No, it's true. Because now the third time I'm seeing it now with my third child, I'm like, yeah, I'm used to that. I'm
Right.
just going to knock and go in.
It doesn't cut you like it does the first time.
Not quite as deep. I get a little tougher.
And, as the teenage years progressed, I can't even say how many times we threatened to take the door off the hinges. I don't know if you guys ever read, oh, well, I just took my teenager's door right off the hinges. I never really could bring myself to do that, but
Well,
kind of
I
hard
was
to
a
change clothes.
right.
I was a kid that the door got taken off my room.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yes. All my kids know this story. They absolutely love it. But I was a door slammer.
Okay.
And it
Oh.
was like the one thing that I was a pretty good kid, really,
Okay.
if I say so myself. But anytime, like I was younger, I was probably not quite a teenager, but I would go and slam my door if I really did not like
Mm-hmm.
the way the conversation had gone with my parents. And they said, "Hey, you keep doing that, we're going to take the door off." Well, one day my dad did. I was like,
Oh.
"Oh, really?"
Oh.
Boom. And he just calmly walked over there and started. I was like, "What?"
How long did you have to go doorless?
A month.
Really? That's a long
Yes.
time.
And because my door was off, my mom cared what my room looked like, which meant I had to
Oh.
clean it.
Yes.
It was not good.
Yeah.
Did you change your ways?
Oh, I did, buddy. I sure did.
Yeah, that sense of privacy is so important to teenagers. I'm sure that was a really big wake-up call for you.
It was, but do you know, and this is something I've thought a lot about with teenagers, as much as I acted like I hated it, as much as I thought that I hated it, that month was really sweet. We
Mm.
had more conversations. I felt safer in a
Mhm.
sense. Like I
Mhm.
just it was a really neat month and it honestly brought my parents and I closer. I would never have admitted that at the time.
Well, they cared enough to do
Yeah.
something,
They
you know.
followed through with what they said no matter what I said or did.
And thus
And
far,
that
you have not had to take any of the doors of your kids.
not yet. They've all heard my story.
Mhm.
And
They know
They
it's
know to
really
do it.
possible.
I think they know we're just crazy enough to follow through.
All right, so something else I was thinking about yesterday was just how hard it can be for parents in the teen years knowing what battle to fight, what line to draw. And so I asked you guys to think about what are some of the hardest lines to hold as a parent. And just was curious to see if you had one or two that you felt like you'd been drawing the line on for quite a long time. Okay.
I said that I didn't have a specific issue or behavior that I struggle with. My biggest struggle was being consistent.
Oh,
Mm.
My
yeah.
tendency would be to kind of draw a line and say, "This is the way it's going to be." Oh, I don't care what everybody else is doing or what other moms are
Mhm.
doing. This is our family. But my one of my children could draw me into the argument,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I would fall for it. And John would say, "Don't argue. Just stand your
Right.
ground." And then I would find myself doubting my decisions when I heard, what other real moms were doing. And so I feel like I just doubted a lot, and it showed my weaknesses to my kids, and they just knew exactly how to
And they
Right.
get
know.
in there. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah. It's almost like any line is hard to draw. They're all open to negotiation as soon
Mm.
as they know the way in.
Mhm.
And they definitely knew it was with me, not John.
Right.
Yeah, kids are smart. Teenagers are smarter at knowing how to try to manipulate whichever parent it is.
How about your lines, Mindy?
Yeah, there was one in particular that I thought of, and again, it went back to dating with our daughter. And not so much dating, but relationships with boys in general. The lines were very clearly drawn, and I remember I'm so thankful for my husband in this one because he very much prayed and sat down and thought through it. It is very difficult to navigate dating relationships or boy girl relationships in the teenage years.
Mhm.
No family does it the same. No, even if you're all Christians, say you've got a group of Christian parents, none of them are going to do it the same.
No.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't something that we could just figure out from talking to somebody else. We had to figure out what are our family's values? What do we want to, promote in our family? And so Bryce very much from the beginning set the tone. And so
Mm.
all I had to do was follow it. A couple of things were, you're not going to ride in a car with a boy alone. If any boy wants to date you, he needs to talk to me first.
Mhm.
If then you go out with a boy, he has to come and pick you up, and I have to meet the boy. And then when Abby would come home, then we would talk about the date, like
Mm.
every detail, what
Right.
happened. And Bryce would ask her very embarrassing questions.
Uh-huh.
Did he touch you? Did you kiss? What did you talk about? As horrible as that sounds, for saying that out loud, it made me uncomfortable. Like if I were a single parent, I would have not been brave enough to set that tone. But I have to tell you, we have had the most open and trusting relationship with
Mm.
Abby. And now that she's at college and 12 hours away, that child is so wise about who she chooses to date. We're not there anymore. The
Mm.
guy can't come to our door anymore. And so that uncomfortableness,
Mhm.
I'm so thankful the line was drawn so straight and strong by my husband And he even said something one time. She had a boy that was a friend and they were texting and Bryce had said, "Look, if he tells you, just meet me here. Your parents don't have to know." Bryce told her, "If a guy ever says your parents don't have to know, that is a huge red flag. Walk away."
That's a good point.
And Abby had a friend, a boy, that had just said that over text, and her eyes got so big. She was like, "How did you know?"
That's
And now that we have sons, Bryce is all up in their business.
Mhm.
And his hard and fast rule and our hard and fast rule as a couple. If you're involved or talking to any person of the opposite sex, we are involved. We
Mm.
have to talk about it. We are involved. We will see the text. We will help you navigate this and learn how to treat and foster these relationships.
Mhm. And that's worked really well for you.
It really has. It's very different with our oldest son than it was with our daughter, but we're still drawing the hard line and even starting to tell our middle schooler knows it's coming.
Mhm.
If they're ever texting with someone of the opposite sex, we're involved.
Right. Are you involved with each text or just like an
Now,
overall looking at the phone just to see any red flags?
you kind of know with your child if there is manipulative behavior or if
Mhm.
they're hiding something.
Mhm.
And so if you have a trusting relationship with your child, then I don't feel like we have to check every text.
Right.
No. Like
Right.
that's to me that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if your child has just come home, you don't feel like you're getting the whole story and you're like, give me the phone.
Right. I think that we have this sixth sense as parents that if the story's on the up and up, we're more than
Yes.
willing to not be delving deeper. But if we have a sense that there's something that is being hidden, then we do kind of feel like uneasy about just letting it go.
Because I don't know about you ladies, you guys are further along in this than me. And I would be really curious because about this particular thing, but the trust issue.
Mm.
Like we totally I can see having that more easily with some of my children than with
Mhm.
others. Trust is so huge,
Right.
and we tell our kids like if we trust you, that equals freedom.
We always said trust and verify.
Okay,
Like, you
True.
do
yes.
trust them, but you do have to check up on them. You do have to follow through
Yes.
on some
Okay.
things.
You do.
I don't think that's a bad thing to do.
Right. Right. I like that. Trust and verify.
Yeah, and I think that the trust doesn't have to be earned at first, but if
Right.
it's broken,
Right.
then it
If it's
needs to be
broken.
earned back. So,
Right.
if you've been going along and doing what you're supposed to be doing, and then we find out, oh, actually, you weren't, well, now we're going
Right.
to have to check up on you more closely than if you
Right.
had just kept on doing what you were doing and we wouldn't have been involved so deeply. But then, hopefully they're earning it back and you can step back a little bit.
Right.
Because it's not like you and Bryce want to be so involved in every little detail
Goodness,
either.
no, we're exhausted on. Goodness, I just want to sit down and relax, and I don't want to have to do all that. It's
Right.
exhausting.
One of our kids had a really good lesson in that they were he was texting or texting with a girl, and she was starting to text really late at night in the middle of the night, and he was kind of bothered by it. Wasn't really interested in this person, in a romantic way, and she started to get a little inappropriate, and turns out the girl's father calls us and
Oh.
apologizes for the text.
Oh my goodness.
And but he commended our son and said, "I just want you to know that he was a gentleman. Everything was fine on his part, but we're apologizing for our daughter." And boy, that was a wake up call to think other
Oh.
parents are looking at your text as well,
That's
not
right.
just your own. But, because I
Yes.
don't think they think about that.
Right.
Right.
I was trying to think about lines to hold. I didn't really feel like we had a lot of lines related to the typical teenage behaviors. No one was asking to have a 2 a.m. curfew.
Right.
They weren't, getting drunk on the weekend, or there wasn't a line of cut and dried behavior that I could have said, no, we're not going to do this behavior, or no, we're not. I found the hardest line was what is acceptable treatment of me, your siblings,
Right.
and what is not acceptable. Because, of course, they're going to be moody, they're going to be snarky, but it just pushes me over the edge when the whole house is affected by a mood, or you're trying to go on family vacation and so just will not get with the program and
Mhm.
make it a pleasant experience. Those kinds of lines were so hard, and they are a continual battle for me even today with 3 teenagers still in the house. It's more of a, how do you keep life pleasant while still respecting the fact that they are going through a lot of changes, but we still have to be decently pleasant to the other people that we live with. I don't know if that happens in your house, because it's so tempting to say, like, fine, you don't want to spend time with me. I don't want to spend time with you either. I'll see you in 5
Exactly.
years.
Exactly. I know. I know. I know we have had to just call it what it is. And I've had to say to whichever child it was that was in our minivan and when we're all 6 together trying to do something, and I'll say, you just have a really bad attitude right now. I'm gonna need you to be quiet. Just stare out the window until you can fix it.
It's a good way to approach it because you really can't change someone's attitude.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
easy to get angry, but they know how to bait you into that anger, like what Julie was
Yes.
talking about. And if you agree to that having an argument, then I feel like you've just lost control, but to
Yes.
not react so quickly to those attitudes is crucial.
Mm-hmm. And very, very difficult.
So hard. So hard.
I just saw a quote today, a timely quote. It was on Facebook actually, and it said, "Teenagers, people who are treated like children, but who are expected to act like adults." And I thought that is so true. That is a lot of the conflict and frustration is we want them to act as mature as we are, like that, but they haven't had
Right.
the experience, the
Right.
life experience and the time yet. And it's, it takes a lot of patience as we wait for that to happen.
It
Oh, it
does.
does. That is funny. I like that quote. It's like they're still children, but they're, 6'5".
Right.
If you were going to give one piece of advice to moms of teens, what would it be? What do you think would have helped you the most to hear?
Well, I did get this advice. It was hard to believe, but I did get this advice, and this is what I would give other moms: is don't project their behaviors, their attitudes, or even their deficiencies into their future. They will mature.
That's
Oh,
so
It
good.
really does happen.
I love that.
It is
I
so easy to snowball and say, well, they don't have this skill now, so they're probably going to be living in my basement in 10 years, still not having this skill.
Right.
Yes. I'm thankful. I also received this advice and it was so timely and it really opened my eyes. But it was don't expect your teenager to rebel.
That's a
Um,
good one.
it's like every piece of advice or every time I heard somebody talking about teenagers before I had one, it was horrible. It
Hmm.
was like, oh, the eye rolling and we don't talk and I can't stand like when they're home and it was just everything was so negative when I heard about teenagers. So when I heard this piece of advice of to not expect your teenager to rebel, that it's all about a relationship. If they're rebelling, it's because there is something wrong with your relationship with them.
Mm.
And then I heard you should enjoy them, have fun with them. That meant a lot to Bryce and I both when we heard that because it freed us up from thinking, like just assuming, almost like Julie, like expecting them to be a certain way. We thought, oh, it doesn't have to be like that. Oh, it can actually be fun to have a teenager.
And it is fun to have a teenager.
It is.
One of the things I was thinking about with a teenager is you are as hip as you're ever going to be for the rest of your life, the years you have teenagers living in the home.
Oh,
They
it's true.
keep you engaged in pop culture. They keep you appraised of, fashion. They're
The
willing
fashion.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're willing to tell you like it is when you walk out of your bedroom wearing something that, "Mom, please, you can't wear that."
Yes.
They will fix your computer for you, set up your DVR. I mean, they will keep you involved in ways that when they move out, you will slowly
Become an old
disconnect.
person.
Yeah.
It's true. Popular songs. I used to have Abby teach me the latest dances. So, like,
Yes.
I learned the whip and the nae.
Uh-huh.
I learned all of that stuff, and I'm pretty good at it, actually.
Right. And a lot of times you learn those things by listening to your kids talk to each other. All of a
Yes.
sudden, they'll be talking to each other about something, and then you can say, "Oh, tell me about that. I haven't even heard of that. You haven't heard of that? Let me show it to you on YouTube." Or they keep you relevant,
They do.
and they make life fun. I mean, they stretch you to do things that you would probably have not been doing anymore, have given up, like learning new
Yes.
dances.
It's true. Learning new dances, and it's so funny. I would have never bought skinny jeans
Oh, isn't
had
that
Abby
funny?
Ray not said, "Mom, you need to wear those." And I was like, "What? No way." Everything I had ever learned was like, to not accentuate your hips, make sure from the knee it goes straight down, right? And like straight leg. Y'all,
Right.
that's where it's at. But no, she got me into skinny jeans, and in return I got my mother into skinny jeans, all from Abby. And
Oh,
my mom actually looks really good in skinny jeans.
that is so true.
Yeah.
They will update your makeup for you.
Yes.
They'll come
Oh,
in
I
and
love
borrow
that.
something. They'll be like, "This is all you have? Why don't
Yep.
you have this?" And then all of a sudden you're thinking, "Oh, well, maybe I do need that." And
Yes.
My daughter doesn't wear makeup.
okay, so
Oh,
So I've always told her, "Oh, you need to wear some makeup." I'm always pushing the makeup. And she goes, "Mom, what mother tells their teenage daughter you need to wear more makeup?"
that's so funny. Well, I do
So
tell
I finally
Abby.
let that one go.
Uh,
well, I'm trying to think of what do boys keep us relevant on. I know that I would know
fart
zero
jokes.
about yeah.
Politics.
Yes,
Politics.
politics. I would know zero
Oh,
about sports. I would
Lord.
not watch a single sports game if it were not for my two boys. I wouldn't
Yes.
even sit down and watch a sports game with Steve, but I'm telling you, when you want to spend time with your teenage boy and they're willing to sit next to you on the couch,
Mm,
you are happy to watch a football game or a basketball game or whatever
right.
just for that opportunity to spend time with them. And sometimes I'll read a little article or listen to something on the radio and then save it up as like a morsel that we can talk about later. "Oh, I read
Yes.
this story about so and so." And they kind of look at you like, "Oh, how'd you know about that?" "All right, well, maybe, yeah, we can talk about that for a few minutes."
Wow, Mom. I know.
Neither one of my boys care for sports, so we don't watch sports. But
Hmm.
they do keep me up on new movies, music, and then
Nice.
David and I love to talk politics. If I need to know what's really going on, what's the bottom line, then he
Oh,
knows.
Oh,
that's
and
really
that's
neat.
great.
He's listening all day long to podcasts and stuff, so I can just get a little
Wow.
briefing from him, and that's kind of fun.
It
Kind of
is
amazing,
fun.
actually.
And it's a
Yeah.
lifelong interest that you can share with talking with him, politics.
Hmm. Yeah,
That was one
and
of
we
the.
agree, so that's nice.
Oh, that's really impressive.
Because if not, we probably wouldn't be talking.
That's funny because that was something on one of our questions that was part of my answer, and that's just getting to know what your kid likes,
Mm-hmm.
and investing in that thing to help foster the relationship to keep away from rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a good relationship with the things that matter to them,
Hmm.
then I feel like it cuts down so much on the stressful parts of the relationship because you've built it up in other areas.
Mm-hmm. Because there are going to be stressful points. So to
There
have
are.
those touchstones where you do agree and it is a pleasurable
Yes.
conversation balances out the times when you've got to be the
Right.
heavy
Right.
or disappointing them with your answer.
That's right. I mean, launching a child into adulthood is not for the faint of heart.
No. No. And that was one of the things that I would have said to moms of teens is just keep going. It will eventually end and the reward is sweet. And it feels like a really long time where there's not an immediate reward. You don't
Right.
know how you're doing. It can be a long time before you're rewarded, even with small things like you're saying, where pick an interest before they even start to respond to you being interested in that subject or want to talk about that with you. You have to just keep doing it daily and showing up and constantly working on that relationship. And it's mostly going to come from you. At this point, it's mostly going to be your work, and you have to kind of accept that and not take it personally.
Right. I so agree. That was something that I wrote down was a piece of advice was also to force them to spend time with you.
Mm-hmm.
They will say they hate it. They will have a million other things that they would rather be doing. Being intentional at looking at every single weekend and saying, okay, yeah, I want you to have time with your friends. I want you to be able to do other stuff. But so when's a time that you would be free because we'd like to have a family dinner or we would like to go explore this place on Saturday? And being respectful of the things that, they find important, but also saying you've got to come with us. Like you have to carve out time to be with us. And that was something that I'm so thankful that we have done and we're still doing. It is a thankless job.
It is.
They're not going to come back immediately and say, I'm so glad that you made me stay home and have family dinner.
Or
But
when you're preparing for an outing that you're actually sort of looking forward to and you're making them come, you know in the back of your mind that this is going to be more work than fun while you're waiting for their attitude to come along for the rest of the day.
It would be so easy to give up.
Yes.
And so I totally agree with both of you, just to not give up, to stand your ground, force if you have to at the beginning, that relationship, there's the time together. They need it. They so desperately need it. And so do we. But yeah, it's highly uncomfortable sometimes.
Right. Friends, we're so glad you joined us today. We'd love to hear your questions and comments about today's episode or any suggestions you have for future topics. You can find us at Midlife Matters Podcast on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also contact us on our website at midlifematterspodcast.com. We hope you'll join us next week for the second half of today's discussion on teenagers. See you then.